Welcome back to the Standing Light podcast. I am your host, Leyla. And today I am so excited to shine a light on one of my dearest soul sisters and friends. She is the founder and CEO of SimplyBe Agency, an international award-winning personal branding firm serving clients across the globe. She is the author of the #1 best-selling book, Be, a No B.S. guide to increasing your self-worth and net worth by simply being yourself, published by Sounds True. Jessica was named a personal branding expert by Forbes, 2020's most notable entrepreneur by Crain's, the 2018 and 2019 Stevie Award winner for Female Entrepreneur of the Year, and a top digital marketer to watch by Inc. On a mission to debunk the perception that personal branding is an act of vanity, Jessica believes that when done right, personal branding is an act of service, a responsibility, and a positive investment toward a positive future. When you set yourself free to simply be, you set the world free. I cannot wait for this conversation. Today also happens to be the launch of the coinciding paperback workbook for her book. So after you listen to this podcast, go grab your copy. And without further ado, let's dive into this incredible conversation. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jessica. I am so happy to have you on the Standing Light podcast.
I'm so honored to be here, Leyla. It's so good to see you.
You too. You too. It's been forever. The last time I saw you, I was in Chicago with you, staying with you.
You were stateside and now you're a European, and that was a whole transition. And was that the last time I saw you in person?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was 2019.
That was a while ago.
2019.
Yeah. Past life.
Yeah, literally. We've rebirthed at least 3 times since then.
At least. Metamorphosis, phoenix, rising,
all
transmutation, all of it.
Alchemization, everything in between.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to have you on here and shine a light on you. And when I was thinking of like, who do I want in the first season of the Standing Light podcast, it was obvious to bring you on board. And just your beautiful light has been so inspiring, not just for me, but for so many. And you, speaking of rising phoenix, have risen like at a quantum level since I last saw you.
Yeah. 2019 to now. Oh yeah, lots happened.
Yes. Hi, I'm Leyla. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jessica.
How old are you? So I just want to intuitively like flow through this conversation because we could speak about everything in between. And I really want our hearts just to guide this because we've had so many different conversations that I want to bring people into this sacred space and share. And I guess one thing that I thought about speaking about is self-worth, because you wrote an amazing book called Be, a no bullshit guide to increasing your self-worth and net worth by simply being yourself. And I remember you actually, I felt really honored to be part of kind of the group of giving feedback of what the title of the book should be. I was like, well, duh, obviously, like SimplyBe is your beautiful company. So it has to be in there. And I have it. I love it. And if any of you don't have it yet, go on Amazon. We'll put the links in there because it's a truly transformative book. And your companion guide or workbook will be coming out as well in January to it. And I'm really excited for that. Let's dive into this incredible topic of really simply being you and the importance of realizing your self-worth to really be you. How have you found yourself to be in that self-love and self-worthiness?
I love this question. So I think that in order for us to be able to feel something in its full expression and expansion, like worthiness, and to fully embody that, we have to understand innately what it's like to experience that in its full contraction. And I was told I was worthless, by my father, by my peer group, by the, you know, culture and society I grew up in my childhood. Like I grew up with a tremendous lack of self-worth and unconsciously tried to band-aid it most of my 20s and young adult life with validation in all the wrong forms.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I really reached a rock bottom and had nothing, like literally was financially broke, physically ill, mentally unwell, toxic people in my life, like really didn't have any sense of worth, that I was finally really able to under look at myself and claim that I had value regardless of what was in my bank account, regardless of what people thought of me, regardless of what I looked like. And honestly, building the sense of worth and worthiness has been the the journey of my life,
Mhm.
like the epic novel of my life, going within and really doing the work, and what does that mean? It's meant a lot of therapy, it's meant a lot of coaching, it's meant a lot of, radical responsibility and shadow work. It's day by day trusting myself that I'm becoming Jessica and feeling more confident in that and sharing myself authentically with the world, with a client, with my community, in a conversation with a friend, and feeling that mirrored back to me that, oh, what I have to say is received. It has value. It matters. And it's just micro actions, frankly, that have been really focused on the inner work
Mhm.
and then trusting myself day to day to bring that out into the world. And I've just kept following that, frankly. And so much has manifested because of it beyond my wildest expectations. I never thought I would run a 25-person team, have a multi 7-figure business, a book deal, all the things that have come in the last 4 or 5 years since we saw each other in Chicago. And I wrote a book on it, right? Like, and it's not because I've mastered it, but because I've committed to that journey.
Mhm.
And so much has happened for me based on being myself, that I want to help and empower other people to take that leap too. And that's my life's work. Like, yes, I'm known for branding, marketing, social media, content, all of those things. It's what my business is about. But in many ways, on a soul level, I feel like I've even graduated from that. And what I'm really here to talk about is this conversation, frankly.
Mhm. And I think it's such divine timing as well, because, you know, whether we go into a recession or whatever is happening or will
Ugh.
happen, worthiness, worth, right? And and I love how you said, like, even though you had nothing in the bank, you learned how to actually feel worthy. You didn't define
Mm.
your worth based off of a number
Mhm.
in this external reality, right? But really, you chose to grow that worthiness from within you, outside of you. And then that's when the transformation took place, right? That's when people were like, oh my, I mean, that's when the expansion happened from the contraction. And I
Mhm.
think as a collective, that's what we've been going through, right? This like deepest contraction to like the darkest, scariest places that
Yes.
none of us want to go to, but we have to, because that's when that revolution of love takes place. But
Yes.
it's like that. I mean, what would you say is that one thing, or is it one thing that you could kind of pinpoint to that was like, this was my guide, this was my saving grace,
Mm.
that whenever I was down there in the trenches, it was like, okay, this I trust, I believe, like I can
Yeah.
keep going.
I would say one of the biggest clicks, there were a couple, but the biggest was I went on an empowerment retreat, kind of at the transition point between my former business and this one. And I was so unconsciously in my victimhood.
Mm.
Like everything in my life was happening to me. It was everyone else's fault. I hated my husband for his opinions towards what I should do. I hated the weather in Chicago for making me miserable. I hated the flights at O'Hare that were always late to get me from one event to the next. I hated everything. It was everyone else's fault that I was miserable. And then I went on this empowerment retreat, frankly. It was $700. It was like the best $700 I've ever spent. And I can't tell you every little thing I did or said at that retreat, but what I did walk away with was one profound, newfound understanding, which was I, Jessica, am in complete responsibility and accountability for my own life. And so every time I drop into victim mentality, which I still do sometimes, um, I remember that it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. Just like what you mentioned with this recession, right? We're at a really interesting time, and my business has tripled. I mean, we've grown year over year over year, and this has been our slowest time in our business. And we are going to probably have to let go of some people, and we're going to have to prune the clients and stay as lean and mean as we can for the next however many months. And I have no sense of failure around that. I don't feel less than. I am not afraid of what people will think of me. I am making a smart decision, a hard decision, but a smart decision. And just because my business expanded and it might contract financially because of things I cannot control, like the economy, I'm no longer letting that define me. That's actually not happening to me. It's
Mm.
happening for me. I don't know what it's for yet, but I'll know when I come out on the other side in 6 months, 4 years, 16 years, right? We upgrade when we go through dark and hard times. That's just the way it works.
Right.
And so I think if I were to point back to any one moment, it's just remembering that I'm fully responsible. I'm fully responsible for how I choose to show up in my life and
Mhm.
what stories I make out of those things that are happening in my life.
Mhm.
And I think that has been probably the biggest tool in my toolkit is self-responsibility.
I second that.
Yeah, yeah.
Going from victimhood consciousness to creator consciousness or God consciousness,
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. And I think, what if this recession, this contraction is just that for us to actually realize what true worthiness is, what true worth is, not this exterior, veneer, shiny, polished
Mm,
stuff outside of
so
us,
good. Hmm.
but actually the rawness and the light and the quality of our love in our own beingness and communing and connecting through that worth, you know?
Fuck yeah. Yes. I'm so here for that conversation.
So
I mean, this is I think we just like that's a book. This is the topic of the podcast. This is like a whole
we're on a podcast.
event series. Yeah, yeah. It's great. It's so true though. Like the expansion versus the contraction. Everyone's been talking about it all year long. I mean, I had a board meeting, so I have a really amazing board,
Mhm.
and they were telling me they're just phenomenal professionals, and they were like, the economy is softening. You would be fiduciarily irresponsible if you don't let go of people. And that was like in a in a way, it caused me so much anxiety because I love my staff, and and of course that's what you sign up for when you become a leader and a boss. You're the tip of the spear, and you got to have really hard conversations, and it's the worst part of the job. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it's brutal. But at the end of the day,
Disclaimer,
I'm
just
here.
don't do it.
Yeah, disclaimer. Don't hire people. Don't people all your problems will be people problems. Um, but I was so we can go there. But I was so clear, like, this is gonna be a contraction and it's gonna suck. It's happening to everybody.
Mm.
And it's here to teach us something. And so let's be available for the lesson. And the only way we're gonna learn the lesson is if we go through it. We can't go around it.
Mm. The breakthrough versus the breakdown.
Correct. The only way out is through.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And, bringing in some heartfulness into this, because as we contract and then expand on a macro level, right? Our heart's electromagnetic field expands and contracts and is directly connected with Earth's electromagnetic field. And so we are literally one unit expanding and contracting. And I love to bring that in, because if we really understand that or understand that, the interconnectivity of our heart's field and our Mother Earth's heart field, and also Father Son's heart field or center field, that is scientifically proven, right? It's an electromagnetic field. And it's so powerful. It's in force and magnitude and energy. It's so, so powerful beyond what our five senses could ever even perceive. But I think that's the magic of this contraction, where we're going to go beyond the five sensory understanding and genuinely like blast open and into this subtle yet very powerful reality that actually is hyper and super connected to everything. Like, that's literally how we are connected. It's the original World Wide Web. And as all of us together contract and squeeze out what no longer serves us through the contraction, right? Because it's just nonsense, really. Like, most of the money is not even backed anyway, right? Or if not all of it nowadays. It's crazy. Like, it's like we don't actually live in reality anymore. We're not living in real beingness. We're living in this like false reality. And I think this, on a spiritual level, is what could possibly be happening for us. And if we all held that vision in our hearts, or that understanding, to kind of lessen the blow or the frustrations or the fear, right? And not operate from this dualistic reality of like, this is good and this is bad, or contraction is bad and expansion is good, but actually understand from a holistic standpoint that the contraction is a necessary medicine that's going to squeeze out what no longer serves us, so that we can expand into a whole new timeline and operating system of our most expansive selves all together. Like, that's the vision I'm holding right now.
I'm here for that. I align to everything you just said. I think about it all the time, that first of all, it's such an exciting time to be alive. No matter how hard it feels. We were just talking before we started recording that the skies, what's happening in the cosmos, it feels like a meat grinder, at least for me, or a microwave. Like, it has been hard on my system
Yes.
on every single level. And yet, when I really drop in, and I try to do this almost every day, or even in my micro moments when I have space to breathe, it's like, Jessica, you're a light worker. You incarnated here at this exact time and space in the infinite on planet Earth, while this paradigm is shifting from the dark patriarchal fear-based conditioning to the divine feminine awakening, love-based conditioning and understanding of raising consciousness on a global scale. You are here for it. You're alive during it. You've got a platform. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. Every single person listening has a platform. We all touch people. We all get to be drops in this ocean that like creates the ripple effect. We're all the ocean. And I have the chills. Holy fuck balls amazing. What a blessing that we are here for this moment in history. And we get to help shift it so that our children's 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 children get to live in a new earth because we are fucking doing the work right now. Like
Preach.
that to me gets me up in the morning every day. Truly it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
So let's contract because we're only going to be able to grow and expand
And
even
birth a
even
new
and
reality,
birth it. Exactly. Exactly.
right? I mean, that actually, your kids contraction, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Like we're literally giving birth, and that
Yeah.
hurts like hell sometimes, right? I mean, it can also be orgasmic. That's a possibility, but lesser than. However, it hurts, and you're pushing everything, like you're pushing yourself in every single dimensional possibility to the max, physically, energetically, everything, right? To literally give birth. And I think if we can look at it from that perspective, and hold each other in that knowing,
Mm-hmm.
it can be a balm, because no one's meant to give
Mm.
birth by themselves. That's a sacred ceremony. And that's what we're in right now. Like, I don't know one person that's just like floating along, happy go
No.
lucky. It's like, it might look like that on Instagram, but please don't be fooled, people. I mean, I work with a lot of clients, as you do as well. And it's just like putting out the biggest fires. I mean, I can also speak for myself, like also within my internal reality and external reality. I think, if they had Costco here in Switzerland, I'd be like buying as many fire extinguishers as I could possibly do.
I
It's like
love that.
a daily occurrence of like putting out those like micro and macro fires internally, but also externally. And then also like handing one over to your sister or brother or, client. And it's
Yeah.
just like, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the care package for the
I
months.
I call myself a firefighter. Like that's my profession, like I'm not the CEO of business. I'm a lot of it's firefighting. And
Wow.
I actually had a session with my therapist a couple of days ago and I was like, am I like are all your clients like am I the only one struggling right now? And she was just like, this is worse than like 2020, like
Yeah.
where people were, because I think that on a micro and macro scale, we're finally metabolizing
Yep.
what happened, like what we've been through, and the world has changed so much, and we haven't really, no one has really stopped to catch their breath, and the processing is now just starting to happen, and so much has shifted in the collective that has sort of just happened while we're not paying attention, and now we're it's like our
Distracted.
new reality. Exactly. And I think it's just, but again, we didn't sign up for this earth life, for it to be easy.
Mhm.
It's the human experience. we
Mhm.
are in a we are in a human body, and there's there is it's a 3D reality with duality here, and that's why we came to train. And to your point, like birthing can be orgasmic, it can also be incredibly painful, and that is the duality of the human experience. And the key is to just not become a victim to it, and to ride the waves,
Mhm.
and remember that we're the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. Connected, all interconnected, all little drops, 8 billion plus drops of us. We're in the school of life. And if you want, you can graduate with a PhD or with a GED, but it's up to you. And I feel like right now we're all choosing whether we want to do the PhD program or just kind of,
Hmm.
but and neither is better or worse, right? It's just like what can you do right now to feel the most peace within? Because we're all in, yeah, this huge integration, but shock and awakening from the shock. And going through the pain, the growing pains. I think that's what it is, right? Just like these growing pains.
Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, I went to school for theater. So, the fact that I became an entrepreneur
I
in
always forget
business,
that.
like late, yeah, I was an actress for majority of my 20s, and I went to school for theater, and then in high school I was in the theater department, and the theater saved me. I was going through a lot of struggle at home, and I could go to theater class and escape, and like pretend to be someone I wasn't, express myself emotionally, like connect in a different reality, right? Like the theater saved me. And I had the most amazing teacher in high school who really influenced me and made me fall in love with the theater. And I remember him saying to the whole class once that he would rather live a life like this. And he like made a roller coaster with his hands, like up, down, than this. And it's just a simple, basic kind of analogy, but I'll never forget that. I was like, yeah, I don't want to live in a straight line. I don't want my life to be mundane and not take any risks
Well, that's
and
one
have the highs and
dimensionality.
lows. Yeah, yeah,
That's one
yeah.
dimensionality. And even our earth, right? Like there's valleys, there's hills, there's high peaks, mountain peaks, right? There's deep, even deeper into the ocean you can go, right? I mean, and the weather as well. Like there's
Hmm.
thunderstorms and lightning, and then there's really bright, beautiful days. It's like that's unnatural, right? Like just like going one dimensional, like one path, or it's not even natural. Like how could that
And
even?
I think the people who are listening to your show, if they're here right now and they follow you, they're not living in the one
No.
dimensionality. They're not.
They're on the
Um,
wild ride along with you and I on this roller
they're
coaster.
up, yeah, exactly, exactly. But what I will say, and what I've learned, especially this year, because we were talking before the show started, just how this year has been so different for
Yeah.
me than any other year.
Mhm.
And I think that in the peaks and valleys, like we're not constantly in this rolling, like we'll be up and then we'll hit it and we'll
Yeah.
coast for a second. We'll get to a place in our lives that feels aligned, that's high vibe, is working for us, and we stay there for a second, and the only constant in life is change, and then something will knock us off course and we'll take a dip,
Mhm.
and we feel like then we're stuck in that, and there's no end in sight, and this is the reality of now, and it feels like forever, and it's just my point is I'm making, like, the one dimensionality, we can fall into it when things are really good and things are
Mhm.
really bad. Like we don't
Mhm.
necessarily want things to change if we're thriving.
Mhm.
Of course we don't. And if things suck, it feels like it's a perpetual, in perpetuity, purgatory.
Yes.
And the truth is, nothing can stay in one dimensionality.
Mm-mm.
Nothing can stay constant.
Mm-mm.
And what a gift that is.
Mhm.
And that's, almost like a paradox, because
The gift and the curse.
when things are really, yeah, when things are really good, we don't want them to change, but they're gonna, and
Yeah.
vice versa.
I was watching I think it was Black Holes with Nassim Haramein. It was amazing, and it was
Okay.
amazing. Yeah. And I remember him showing this visual of us as a Milky Way, or I just remember all of these planets and our whole Milky Way kind of evolving and revolving around the sun, right? But they kept going up. And I think that's what's happening, right? It's like, even though it feels like valleys and peaks, we still keep rising up. So, like, the next valley is going to be where the last peak was, right?
Mm,
And I
mm,
think we are like, I mean,
mm.
that's evolution, that's consciousness being raised, right? So even though, I mean, imagine if we had 2022, I don't know, 50 years ago, that wouldn't even be like, I think, I don't know, the operating
I know what
systems
you're
of
saying.
humans would just
Totally.
like
No,
zap, you know?
combust. Yeah.
It's like,
This is what, yes, I think about this all the time, Layla, it's literally, it's hard for me to even put into words.
I know.
Like, like
Two little
how,
philosophers on the Standing Light podcast.
I know, but like, this is shit I love talking about this stuff. This is, this is the science of the whole universe,
I
which
know.
is ever expanding.
Yeah.
It is ever expanding. So, um, many years ago, a couple years ago on my birthday, I took myself to the planetarium in Chicago. Like, I smoked some pot, went went to the
Go
planetarium
girl.
by myself. And that was my how I wanted to spend my birthday. Everyone's like, "Do you want to go to some fabulous lunch and champagne?" And like, I'm like, "No, I want to go to the planetarium alone and learn about the stars." Like, that's what I want to do. And so it was epic, and I should do it every year. And a lot of it in Chicago at the planetarium is about our solar system, the moon. It's cool. It's really cool. But then there's this little like exhibit down on like the bottom floor that talks more broadly, that has more exhibits on the actual like universe. And there was this tiny little placard of the physical, like almost like a cubic sampling of what the universe looked like a billion years ago, or like billions of years ago. And it was a model, right? It was a graphic, but it showed how the universe is quite literally scientifically
Growing.
growing, expanding, and expanding in infinite way. Like NASA can't even wrap their brain around how the universe is like trillions with a T, like trillions upon trillions of times bigger than they originally thought it was decades ago, because they're getting more data and information.
Mhm.
And if you really freaking think about
Right.
you can't, like, the magnitude of infinity, like, how do you even conceptualize that in our little brains?
Mhm.
And then you bring yourself back to, a bad phone call that you had with a client,
Reel it back in.
like,
Hi,
yeah,
3D.
but then you're like, exactly. You're like, but like we're made of that stuff.
Yeah.
We're made of that stuff.
Yes.
That's where we came from. And that's where we're going to go back to.
Mhm.
And this
We are
tiny little grain of
supernovas.
sand. Exactly. And so I I think about it all the time. If that's the macro, what I just explained that I saw at the planetarium, just like the macro of the all macro,
Mhm.
and we're here in the micro. But if prime creator, all things made unto like itself, we are a part of the infinite. We are made of stardust, quite literally. Then like is like, and we are expanding. Our lives are expanding. Our hearts are expanding. Our technology is expanding. The human race is expanding cellularly, collectively, consciously, emotionally, intuitively, mentally, financially. Like, everything is growing,
Mhm.
and it can't not. That's the nature of the universe. So
Right.
even when you think you're contracting, you're actually expanding.
And scene.
I need to listen to this podcast back on my really dark, shitty days.
That's the whole point
You
of this
said that, Jessica.
podcast.
Don't forget. Yeah.
Yeah. Your light dose of the day every Wednesday.
Really
Remember
good.
to stand in your light. Remember you are light. Remember
You
light
are
is within
light.
your heart.
The truth, though.
Mhm. And I mean, before we started recording, I was also saying, like, I'm learning every day more, just as you are, right? Like, for me, it's not to hide in my light or to just stand in it, but to actually be it.
Mm-hmm.
Simply be my light and let
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
emanate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's all you have to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
That's your only job.
Yeah.
It's true, though.
And it's difficult. And I don't know, what kind of substances we were on when we signed the contract to come here, but we were next level light worker warrior artists that were like, okay, we're going to put some fires out. We're all in. We're trained for this.
Yeah, we are. We
And
are.
I'm so happy. to be doing this with you.
Me too. Me too. I love you, Leyla. Like we met so fortuitously, and it's funny, like that of all the things that were shifting in your life and shifting in mine at the time, like I saw you and you saw me, and it's a sisterhood, you know. It's one of those relationships where you don't have to see each other all the time. You can be in different parts of the world and still feel that complete heart to heart connection and mirroring. Like, so I just want to say that.
I love you too. Thank you.
I really do love you. You're amazing, beautiful soul, and so happy you're in my life. And I'm so happy you asked me to be on your podcast.
Oh my gosh, of course. I'm so excited for this episode to air and for people to just be able to bask in your beauty, your inner beauty, your outer beauty, every part of you. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your fire, we're both fire signs.
Yes, we are. My little
Aries and
Aries
Leo.
you. Every time someone brings up an Aries, I think of you.
Really?
You're my 100%. I should have told you that. You're my favorite Aries.
Oh my God.
You're such an Aries, and I love you.
I love you too, so fucking much. Hopefully our fires and love and light unite in physical form very soon again.
They will.
But in the meantime, it's been a pleasure sharing the sacred space with you. And are there any final words you would like to share with this beautiful artist community?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I We talked about so much. We talked about worth. We talked about, you know, the infinite. We talked about contracting and expanding, victim consciousness. This was a great conversation. Um, I guess the last thing I'll say, and I kind of said it before, but I'll say it again in this way. You weren't put here by accident. This is your life incarnation matters. It's for a reason, and it's not an option to live your light and to fully be who you are. It's your responsibility. It's actually your job, not your job title, what's on your business card or your LinkedIn profile. It's like you being you is your job. You are here to do a job to awaken this planet into more love. You wouldn't be listening to Layla's show if you weren't. And so remember that you hold that responsibility, and to live it unapologetically,
To simply be you.
to simply be you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Love you.
Thank you, Layla. I loved this. This was beautiful and so fun.
Yes.